Welcome back to the Tuesday weekend, and we are still talking about managers this week. And we're going to leave this last block for just some of our experiences with managers, other thoughts on doing that job, what we have learned, both positive and negative. I actually did want to bring in another example, and that is the manager's boss, the food and beverage director. And now, okay, not every place has an F&B director, but in my experience, we had weekly meetings with all the various restaurant and bar managers in the building, the F&B director and the general manager. And one of the F&B director's favorite things to say were consistency, consistency, consistency. Sure, I get it. Yeah, absolutely. And then also talk about how he needed us to watch our labor budgets and how the labor budget was the biggest expense in the building, and always labor, 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 consistency, 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 labor, labor, labor. And I see a conflict between these two ideas. So my sincere question for managers, directors, owners in this industry, if not our people, what should that biggest expense be? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Not to dwell on that too long. We have
Is
more.
the biggest cost like either real truffle or saffron?
Yeah, yeah, it's that 22-year-old Barolo sitting in the cellar. Yeah, that should be the
that you can't sell.
No,
I mean,
good luck selling that bottle.
and again, just on that note, like the most expensive thing, I worked in a place where we had a reserve list, and the reserve list was really good wines we had that we didn't sell out of over the years that all of a sudden became great wines. And this restaurant said, well, instead of just having them on the wine list, it's like we have a reserve list as well if you'd like to check this out. And now I'm selling $400 bottle of wines instead of $80 bottle of wines because, oh, they've got the Beaujolais from 2002. And people are thrilled about it. When we're talking about the good and bad manager points, my biggest takeaway from managers is my best managers have made me better at what I do.
Yes.
And my worst managers haven't recognized how good I am at what I do. It made me feel like I'm doing something wrong when I'm actually doing a very good job. To me, that's the biggest. If you're a manager, you should change manager to kind of mentor. I mean, hopefully you've done the job before. I mean, I can't tell you how many places I worked. Oddly enough, the fine dining place that was so great, my bar manager had never poured a drink. And he was a horrific bar manager. Anytime he walked behind the bar, me and every other bartender, even if I was serving, was going like, well, this is just going to suck. And he's going to try to throw together like a raspberry margarita, and it's going to take 10 minutes when we can make it in 30 seconds. And he just doesn't understand to just go like, hey, we need to do this, and let the bartenders go, okay, and just do it. It's the managers who read a magazine article and think it's a good idea to do something that has no translation to where they work.
Sure.
It's the managers who, hey, this keg needs to be changed instead of just going and changing the keg.
Well,
it's
part of that is recognizing again the workflow and what needs to be done in that moment, but part of it is also, I'm all right, maybe this is kind of the 30,000-foot view esoteric level, but recognizing what the audience in your place will take. I mean, if you have a lot of tourists, there are expectations for tourists, restaurants that are there. If you, even using Carson City as an example, there are restaurants that you could get away with in Reno because there are 250,000 people there, that in a town of 55,000 people, you're going to have a much tougher time with.
Yeah.
And some of it is as an owner recognizing that, but then also as a manager, but like, okay, well, this isn't working. How can we, without totally revamping what we do here, what little shifts can be made that is more appealing to this audience, that would sell better?
How can we change lanes?
Yes.
We're still going the same direction. We just want to move over here instead of here. Let's see if this works better.
Yep.
And it's recognizing that. But it's also, as a manager, recognizing your staffs, knowing kind of what's going on. When my father passed away, one person on my management staff, and that was the general manager, had gone through the same thing. And then another manager came in and he had gone through the same thing. So I kind of had a support system, but the other three managers had no idea. I mean, I would go and visit my mom and come back. I mean, this is just like months after this has happened, and just not quite in the right frame of mind to be working, but still working because it was right after COVID, so had to be there, and them jumping on me where I'm just going like, I'm about a hair's breadth away from physically taking your head off right now. You really need to understand what's going on. And a lot of managers, they just don't. They put their head in the sand and like, I'm a manager, this is my job, you have to do it. I say, I hate the managers who think they deserve respect because they're a manager.
Because they're a manager. Yep.
I've worked with so many of those, like, well, I'm the manager. And I'm like, no one cares, dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do it because I'm the manager and I said so.
yeah, it's not that. It's like, I'll do it because you're the manager and this is what you want done. And I respect you because you're running a good ship, not because this is a great idea. Like the manager who rolls in and says, hey, we're going to introduce all these new martinis today with all these different colored salts and sugars. And I'm like, it's Friday and it's a Jazz playoff game. This is probably not the best idea to do this tonight.
Yep.
And we do it on that night and it's a disaster. And then he goes, hey, make me all these drinks for that table of ladies over there. And it's just like, dude, sure.
See,
great.
now there's almost the other end of that spectrum. There's one guy that I worked with who self-admittedly was the laziest person in the building.
Mm-hmm.
And in some regards, he was kind of cool to work with because he never put a lot of extra expectations on you. But at the same time, like, I'm not learning from you, like, okay, sure. Every once in a while, he would justify that. And it's like, oh, if you want to learn the most efficient way to do something, ask the laziest guy. And you know what? Honestly, occasionally he was right. But generally, that's not the way to impress a staff. And I mean, there's also another chef that I worked for who was skilled at delegating and himself getting as little work done as possible.
Yeah.
But this is also the same guy where it would be 1:30 on a midweek day, but like, hey, have you seen Chef? And like, oh, he left like 20 minutes ago. I'm like, wow, I wish I could show up at like 10 o'clock and be done with work by 1:30. That sounds sweet.
Didn't you have that one chef when you worked up at Deer Valley who was usually in my bar by 2 or 3 o'clock?
Oh, there were a couple of cooks where
I know those cooks. They would pay for their tabs with their ski passes, like a $12 tab. Thank you.
Yeah, you're good. All right. Well, any other thoughts on managers that you would like to bring up before we get to our restaurant shoutouts?
Yes, it is an absolutely thankless job unless you have that mindset. I have worked with managers who have been managers for years and they are very good at it and they genuinely care about everything in the restaurant, the staff, the guests, the silverware. I mean, it is their place and they want you to be as welcome as possible and enjoy yourself and enjoy working there as well. Unfortunately, that's like 1%.
That's one. I mean, it really is. Can I say it's juggling while running a marathon?
Yeah.
It's kind of what being an actual front of house manager is like, because there's always something that needs your attention and there's very little respite. You don't get a lot of rest.
It's usually not listed like you say, like, and then this, and then this. It's like, it's this, and this all right now, and you have to deal with all 3 or 5 things.
Exactly. I mean, and this is urgent, but then also this is urgent. And
one of the restaurants down the street from me, Ironside, which is a fantastic seafood place, they had a manager there. She was from France. She was fantastic. She was their training manager for a restaurant corporation that now has like 23 restaurants. If they had a manager that they were bringing up, they went and worked at that restaurant with her. And she had a passion for the place, a passion for her employees and stuff. And then ownership just let her go. And this ownership group does that a lot to a lot of really good managers, where there now is a lot of restaurants around town that have these great managers who all came out of that restaurant group. And these restaurants are now surpassing that restaurant group. You find the people who have the passion, and Jesus, just keep them, pay them what they're worth, give them the money they want. Yeah. It's like, oh, we can't pay them that much. Yes, you can. You can pay your manager more than you just paid $30,000 for a stuffed octopus to be hung up. I mean, no one cares about the damn octopus, but if the restaurant runs great and you make money on it, do that. I'm like, when you go to the places that have the staffs that are there for a while, those people aren't there because they just make money. They're there because of the management. I have left more jobs because of management than because of the job.
That is ultimately why I left the casino, was because of the food and beverage director more than any other single reason.
Yeah, it's managers can make or break your restaurant, your bar. If you go to the same bars that have the same people in there the whole time, there's a reason.
Oh, sure. Well, and again, with the customer service, a manager can build rapport with your guests just as easily as a bartender or a server can.
Yeah.
And again, it's the recognizing, oh, hey, you were in a couple weeks ago. Good
Yeah.
to have you back.
It's a big deal. It really is. And a lot of managers, even with the table touching, they don't take the time. A lot of them, not all of them, don't take the time to learn about their guests, learn about the people who are paying their salary. And also there's managers who you'll die for, you'll go to war for, you'll do whatever they want because they have got your back. My last
Absolutely.
restaurant job, our bar manager, when I first started, she's the one who hired me over the objections of the general manager. I turned out to be one of the best bartenders they ever had there. According to the general manager, he said, I made a mistake in not wanting to hire you. And then when they let her go, and this is after they also let that general manager go before that, I was doing her inventory on my bar every week. And after they let her go, I stopped doing that. And then I was asked by the new man, he's like, why aren't you doing the inventory? And I'm like, Christy's not here anymore. And I was doing it for her because she really helped me out and did a lot for me here. Your current bar manager doesn't even talk to me. I mean, like I trained him as a bartender and he was our third tier bartender and you made him a manager. Great. But no, he can use to learn how to do this inventory and how long it takes.
I have one thought on inventory to share, and that's because I
Have to do it.
in banquets, I spent a couple months fine-tuning the list to match my shelves. And then
Yes.
I
Every
went
time.
over to the Italian restaurant and it was just a jumble. So again, took a couple weeks to make sure that it's in the same order so I could just kind of down the
That's
list instead of
exactly.
hunting and picking. And it made that whole process just faster, more efficient.
Well, like I said, like my old bar manager at that job, the liquor room was done in order of the list. And when I stocked the liquor in the liquor room, I put it in order. I didn't just throw it up, I put it in order of the list. The new manager, I'll just stock the liquor and he'd throw it all over. And he's like, well, it's so hard to do inventory. And I'm like, it's because you're just throwing stuff up on the shelves, man. I mean, we had it literally like alphabetized what? Alphabetized gin, alphabetized bourbon, alphabetized whiskey, like how the list was.
Well, and I guess maybe this would be the my closing thought on managers is in so many ways the tone is set from the top down. If you as a manager think keeping the liquor closet well organized is important, then your barbacks are more likely to get on board with that. Whereas if you don't care, then why should they care?
Right.
You
And the one thing we didn't really touch on, I want to bring up just real quick, is the buffer,
Oh,
the
yes.
managers versus ownership. Most restaurant and bar owners have no idea how to run a restaurant or a bar. They just have the money and they have, well, I want to do this type of restaurant, and they get it started, but then they keep stepping into parts like, well, this wine is great. Let's put it on the menu. It's like, this wine is very expensive and not very good.
I feel there's actually a lot we kind of glanced over on management without really getting into it, but we are also, kind of going a little long this week. So we can always have another episode about some of these topics more specifically.
Well, I mean, it's just such a big thing. You get three bars next to each other. The best bar is going to be the one with the best service. The best service is going to come from the best management. Like you said,
Totally.
top down. I mean, when you have an upper management staff that understands they need a good lower staff and want to get the best people in, regardless of who they are or what they look like, you're going to be great.
Yeah. And really, again, part of it is problem resolution within your team. That's how you build the team that will follow you into battle.
Yes.
Is by them seeing you just working for them and not giving away the farm because the customer's having a bad day. Take their side. There's a lot of nuance to it. I kind of personally think I'm actually pretty good as a manager, but just because I have a talent at it doesn't mean that that's the thing that I need to be doing.
Here's two manager stories for you, and this should sum it up. When I first started working at the Oyster Bar downtown, I started in the Market Street Grill, which is the public side, but they also had breakfast. Had to start at breakfast. It was a work your way up place. When I started working there, my manager was Joy Bradford, who is easily one of the best managers I have worked for in any place ever. And she was there because the regular manager was on maternity leave. Breakfast was great. And I don't like breakfast. We've talked about breakfast, but it was still, I came in, liked the job, liked who I worked for. The new manager comes in from her maternity leave. When she showed up, half the staff quit. Like literally the day she was coming back, half the staff didn't show up for service. That was how bad of a manager she was. That they had been there when she was there before and then actually found out what a real good manager was like. And we're just like, I'm not putting up with this at all for even 1 second again. And they all left. At the same time, when I was a manager of a sports bar downtown, I was relieved of duty because of an ownership change. And every single person on the staff I hired quit that day. As soon as they found out you're not here, yeah, they just walked out.
Sure.
They're like, where's Nick? He's like, well, he doesn't work for us anymore. Like, oh, okay. And they literally just grabbed their stuff and walked out.
I suppose I should just very quickly tell the story how I left that management job at the brunch place in New York. Is there was one Saturday where I was standing there with a frittata in my hand and a suddenly silent dining room with a pregnant lady just full lung screaming at me. It was like, you know what? I'm going back into the kitchen. And so then I spent the next 17 years not having to deal with people like that. But then I finally had worked for the chef that just drove the love of professional cooking out of me, and I went back to the front of the house. So, it's a balancing act anyway. Anyway, let's get very quickly to our restaurant shout outs. I am going to shout out LA Bakery here in Carson City. Great coffee, great pastries, good sandwiches. I mean, just solid breakfast and lunch place. If you're around, go check them out. I have nothing bad to say about them. Everything I've had there so far has been delightful.
I'm going to give a shout out to a steakhouse called Cowboy Star down in East Village, which is not the nicest neighborhood in San Diego, but still really nice. But this place, it's not the most expensive place in town, but it's the best place in town. This is where all the bartenders, all the servers, all the barbacks, all the managers, we all go there to eat because the food is fantastic. The service is fantastic. And for all you restaurateurs who think you know everything, go into that place and you will see how a properly run management staff goes, because they have the open kitchen. The cooks will talk to you. The chefs will talk to you. The managers will talk to you at the bar. It's great. I absolutely love the place.
I suppose there's one more thought for managers is sometimes there is quite a bit to be learned by visiting your competition. And again, both in the positive and the oh, hey, we don't have that problem. Glad for that.
Yeah.
So.
And also in the, wow, we should really be doing that right now.
Oh, that is such a good idea. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you to Nick Parkin as always. Our music was written by Andrew Smith. Our social media engagement supervisor is Deneen Oliver. And I have been Josh Hobson. And you have been fantastic for sticking around till the end of this video. So hit that like button, leave us some comments, and we will see you next Tuesday.
I love saying that.
All right. So long.